Debbie Critchfield, how are you?
So great.
So great. I'm just fantastic. I'm so pumped to be talking to you. You and I have been working together on various things with public education in Idaho for a few months now. And you are, of course, a superintendent of education for the state of Idaho. Awesome. The focus of today that we're trying to hit on is how we came to the point we're at with technological integration in our public schools. My kids do go to Idaho public schools. There's, one-to-one tech Chromebooks. There's a lot of questions that I had in previous times about why we have this. But the biggest question is like, kind of, how did we get here? And is where we are perfect?
Perfect? No.
Yeah.
But, there are some bright spots of things that are happening. We're not going to get away from technology. So let's start there. I think to have a conversation about where it works into the school day, how we put safeguards and all of those things is the appropriate place to start. So the quick history, when you look at the inclusion and really the proliferation of tech into schools, when we got into testing online, we'd have computer labs and kids, and they still do this to an extent, but they're learning keyboarding rather than typing and,
right.
Some of those. Well, then when we had more and more testing taking place that we could do rather than paper and pencil, then they're bringing in computer carts into the classrooms, and it's less about the kid going into a
computer lab.
Computer lab.
Yeah.
And then you see smart boards coming in for teachers, although those are expensive and you don't see them as much, but nonetheless, going away from the transparencies, and then iPads and different things, devices coming into the classroom. Well, then we hit a little thing called COVID, and immediately we had to pivot in public education to address how is learning going to take place? How is testing going to take place? And because I was on the State Board of Education at the time, we went to work and the Board of Education was able to get a statewide contract to get Chromebooks devices in, because not every school had used their budget for one-to-one devices. We were not a one-to-one state. It really depended on where you were. And so using federal COVID dollars, the state said, we're going to make sure that all of the schools have the ability, if they choose to be able to offer their kid a Chromebook to go home. Now, for the obvious reasons, that was all expedited. Let's hurry and get them here. Let's hurry and get them distributed. Let's get kids logged in. Let's get the learning. Let's get the Zoom, all of those things. I think what we didn't pause to do was think about what are all of the extras that go with this responsibility part of technology. So there's the quick history.
Man, and who could blame you for any of that?
Well, I hope no one.
Like, I'm sure people could, but
Yeah.
I remember, I learned about COVID and that we were shutting down all at the same time on a Saturday. And the next day, Sunday, I had 5 brand new classes of May SAT students that were starting. So these are 6-person classes. So I had 30 students who I had never met and who still thought they were going to have to take the test, because initially it was like flatten the curve, 2 weeks. We didn't want to lose that 2-week time frame. So I ran around, like, we jumped on Zoom. I'm like, look, this is not a big deal. We're going to we would meet once a week. I'm like, we'll meet for twice on Zoom. Don't sweat it. I, ran all around the Bay Area delivering. I set up like a pickup table for parents to come pick up stuff. And then I ran around and delivered all the textbooks and everything that people needed. And the next day I fired up Zoom. It's like, okay, here we go. No one knew anything about what you could see.
It was all real time. We're making decisions in real time. No one had experience that we could look to. There wasn't a book that we could open, other than, I guess, you look at like the flu, the Spanish flu that broke out. But I mean, it wasn't like we could go somewhere. I know it wasn't like we could go somewhere and there was a manual to say, this is how you handle a worldwide pandemic while children are in school. We were building the plane as we went.
Right. That's a great way of putting it. So again, at least for me as an educator who, and again, I was engaged in private education, but as an educator who's like, look, I need a hammer. Like, I have a problem here. I need to fix this immediately. No one considered, look, when I would teach, I'd curse a lot. It was very theatrical. You're dealing with 16 and 17-year-olds.
Listen, there's an element of performance involved.
That's what I said to the parents.
I
emailed the parents.
I'm not condoning the language, but
I emailed the parents. I was like, I have to warn you, I do curse a lot. It's performative. Like, and anyway, the point is no one knew that like here I'd be cursing in the middle of somebody's living room and they had like a 10-year-old. So like I made a bunch of mistakes immediately that along the way it was like, okay, can't do that. So again, we were all learning, but coming out of that, after all the one-to-one tech was distributed here, and again, I moved here in 2020. I was really surprised. Initially, I was really pumped. I'm like, oh, the kids have one-to-one tech here as well. Yeah. But I started realizing there are problems.
Fast.
It came fast.
And this huge wave, and some schools were prepared for it. Most were not. No teachers had any training, and still don't, frankly, on how to teach through technology. I mean, there's some that they gravitate towards those types of learning deliveries, but for the most part, I mean, the learning experience is about that personal engagement in a classroom. And so that was another element of, now we have this device that we're going to take home. And frankly, we heard from some parents who said, I don't want this thing. Do I have to take it? What do I do with it? That had other family rules around devices in their home. So that generated some other discussion points and other questions that schools, frankly, hadn't had to consider before.
Right. And who saw this stuff coming? Right? Like you don't...
My crystal ball was very fuzzy.
Very fuzzy.
Very, very cloudy.
So in 22, I move here and I start the podcast and I'm very fortunate to start meeting, cool people. One of those people was Sheriff Clifford. Sheriff Clifford was running for a re-election for Ada County Sheriff. And I was such an idiot when I was interviewing. Can I just tell you for a second? I was so dumb. This is a horrible admission. I knew so little about the state of Idaho that I didn't realize Ada County encompassed Boise and everywhere else. I thought it was Boise County. And I'm like,
new. There is a Boise County.
I know, but it's not.
It's a little more wooded area.
Yeah, like a little
trees.
bit. And I literally am like, oh, well, like a small town sheriff. Like, it's like total idiot. Like I admit, I'm a fool. Yeah.
No, you get a pass.
So anyway, as I met people and from different law enforcement agencies and different educators, I started finding out that there was a concern. There was like a disconnect between what law enforcement was finding out about, and there's always a lag, right? Like it's like this horrible game of telephone where it's like somebody finds this about over here and they're completely removed from this person over here. And so it takes a while. But what I started finding out was that there was this growing concern and real relevant problem that law enforcement was engaging in with these Chromebooks, or with school-based technology, let's just say that. And that hadn't percolated to the schools yet. And I thought there was an annoyance, but it turned out that it's as much as we try, and I really dove into this, like, can we make these Chromebooks safer so we never have to engage with law enforcement with a school administered tech? And everyone was trying. Everyone is still trying. Right. Everybody's still going to school today or work today all the time to make these things safer. But the more I dove into it, the more I realized like, oh, we'll never make them 100% safe.
Well, it's sort of like cancer in the sense that we all carry those cells. It's what activates it. So to say, hey, we'll find the cure to cancer. We're not going to find the cure to cancer because cancer is everywhere. So you treat it, you do the things that you can to prevent it. And I think on the preventative side for schools, they would say, we've put all the filters on there while your child is at school. We're going to filter TikTok. We're going to filter social media. We're going to, limit access to YouTube unless it's, for a learning video or some of these other things. And in some ways, we had teachers that were frustrated and would say, I'm not even going to bother using the technology in my classroom because there's so many blocks on what I can get to. Well, we have creative, intelligent students that know how to do workarounds on things in some ways better than adults. And to your point, there's nothing that's foolproof. I mean, we have phones, and that goes with it an amount of risk. But we're going to learn how to responsibly use a phone. And I think that education piece, along with other safety strategies and software will make a big difference for our kids.
Yes. And again, one aspect of improving the safety of the tech really has to be parent focused. We absolutely need digital citizenship. We absolutely need digital literacy. We absolutely need the smartest kids on the appropriate tech the world can produce.
Absolutely.
But we also need to realize that they're still kids. right? Like there's no world, like I tell people this and it's true. When I was a kid, I had this champagne Honda Accord. And it was like a 1988. It was terrible. It had like 5 horsepower, stick shift, and I could burn out, right? Front wheel drive. The wheels were like that wide. And no matter what I knew it was wrong. I was like, I should not be doing this on, this main drag. But it was like stoplight, like rev the engine, drop
You're a kid.
Right. No matter what, if we focused, if my parents are like, I know, I will stop Matt from doing anything bad in this champagne Honda Accord by telling him that it's bad or advocating for an appropriate usage of this car, then he'll be fine. That's absolutely not true. There's nothing you could have told me. And if you had given me a more dangerous car, like a Porsche, I would be dead. Right. And so the thing that we have been going after trying to educate children aggressively about the risks of technology, the risks of the internet, how to use these devices appropriately. But the parents have been left out of that conversation.
Well, and I'm going to add one thing to that. I think we have compartmentalized the education in a way that there's education you should know that is different than what you learn at school. So at school, it is, we've got the filters, we've got the blocks, but here's the technology. We want you to get on there. And here's where, we're going to supplement some learning. And it's a tool. And then families can talk to you about predators, social media, some of those other aspects. And I think what you and I have talked about is merging those two worlds.
Yes.
So that the school people and the parents, we're giving the same information about the same dangers because it's one piece of technology, whether it's your phone or an iPad or whatever it is. The same rules apply whether it's at the school or it's at the home. And for parents to understand, here's what the school can do and what they will do and what the Chromebook or whatever they bring home is equipped with. Here's where we leave off and we hand over to you because now it's on your time.
That's such a beautiful way of putting it, which is like, look, this is a team effort. I'm handing you the baton. You have to keep this safe for your leg of this race.
Right.
And when your kids come back, we'll keep it safe. But that aspect, that repartnering with parents and bringing them in and making them the established primary protector of their children,
Absolutely.
That's something that has to happen. But that only happens if the schools are like, hey, I'm handing you this baton. Right. You're now responsible and it's dangerous.
If while the child is at school, there is misuse or inappropriate use, and then a parent gets a phone call, but that phone call comes from the school while the kid is at school. Well, what happens when the Chromebook goes home and, mom's making dinner or whatever's happening in the home and the kid's doing their homework? I mean, it would be interesting if then if the parent called the school and said, hey, something's happening on this Chromebook while the kid is here. But I think the awareness piece of here's what the school can and will do during the school day and what the Chromebook's equipped with, when that comes home, here are some things that you should know, some gaps. And it can't be all things, but a parent can then come in and have the first place of monitoring, the technology and screen time.
Yes. And again, the first place. I think a lot of parents that are struggling with technology or just accepting technology, especially, again, ones with robust monitoring systems, there's an assumed level of efficacy with those monitoring systems that, yes, they're better than no monitoring system. They're not a perfect example. My 12-year-old who goes to middle school, who has a Chromebook, tells me I have a good relationship with him, which is obviously at the core of keeping your kids safe with tech.
Sure.
I have a good relationship with him. We're driving. I was like, hey, I got to tell you something. And I think the worst is coming. I'm like, oh no, here it comes. And like, I can watch Star Wars videos on YouTube on my Chromebook. I'm like, wait, what? What do you mean? Like, show me. So he grabs it out. We, tether it to my phone right away, which is another big piece. People think that, we don't have, even if you hide Wi-Fi passwords, almost every kid has a phone close by that can do a hotspot and give internet to, the Chromebook. Anyway, so in the car, he whips out his school Chromebook. We tether it to my phone with a hotspot. He gets the internet. And he goes to YouTube and puts in a Star Wars video game YouTube video that he wants to watch. Screen blurs out because the monitoring system is intact and is functioning. I'm like, okay, so you can't watch it. He's like, I know, but watch. Copies the URL, opens a PowerPoint, goes to insert URL, inserts URL, and it starts playing within the PowerPoint. So there's this whole undercurrent of function that is enabled on these devices that kids tell each other about all day long, that it goes around these monitoring systems, because these independent, YouTube is not talking to the PowerPoint people saying like, okay, how do we work this out?
And P.S. this is a minor.
Right.
Like there's nothing about technology of copy, pasting, scrolling, searching that indicates to a computer that this is a minor.
Right.
And by the way, I hope in this conversation with your son, you had a moment of pride that he would trust you to tell you that.
I was so proud.
And then the second thing, I hope you were like, okay, you're pretty smart. Like a moment of pride of, oh, all right, well, look what you figured out.
Yeah. So, well, one of the interesting things is that almost every instance we've had with this, we're like, how do you know this? And he's like, this kid told me. And it's nice. Like whenever, like, I'm not saying my kid is dumb, but one person figures it out and then the whole school knows within a week.
Well, of course. And when you think back to when we were in school and we had the same types of conversations, they were just different subjects. We weren't talking about how to, work around the filters of a smartphone or whatever. Right. But that's just generations of kids being kids.
Right.
And so I think you can expect that a kid is going to be a kid. They're going to push on the boundaries. They're going to explore. They're going to be curious. That part is okay. So much as, or as long as, I guess I should say, the adults say, all right, well, at some point we've got to have some rules around this because we know a kid's going to be a kid. Well, the parent needs to be the parent and the school needs to still be the school. Instead of have the expectation, using your car analogy, that if we tell a kid, if you start sharing personal information with someone you don't know online, that you're going to be possibly in danger, among other things, right, that they will therefore self-regulate and not do it. They're not going to, that's an impossible strategy. It is. And so, okay, we accept that. We recognize that again. And we say they're developing minds, developing adolescence. This is that kind of exploration time. Then what's our responsibility as adults? Well, the school will say, well, we've put the filters and when they're on our turf, on our time, we've got these blocks, we've got all these things. Thank you very much, I say as a parent. And now I need to know where I need to pick up from that place. Like you get to a line and then I want to be ready on the track to get the baton handed to me. So then my protocols at home can then kick in.
Yes.
And then we kind of put some bubble wrap around some of these things.
I think that's actually very well said, that in passing the baton, the schools work extremely hard to keep the kids and the tech safe when they're at school, but they need to appropriately pass the baton to the parents, and the parents need to recognize what they're collecting. And they are not collecting an innocuous, 100% safe piece of technology that they can ignore, right?
Yeah, and none exists.
Right.
I mean, that's the world that we live in, the risks that we take by using technology.
Right. As I figured this part of this out, in last year and then throughout this year, I did partner with several law enforcement agencies and ICAC people to present a program to you in the state of Idaho. Officer Gomez and I worked together and made the Fortify Your Kids program, which is the parent tech education program that we have now partnered with the state of Idaho to provide to everyone in Idaho. It was very important for Gomez and I to present this technology to the state of Idaho at no cost, but for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a homeschool kid. It doesn't matter if you're a charter school kid or a private school kid. It's really important that we protect our children because the dangers that our kids are encountering are going to cross-pollinate. It doesn't matter if we are, I have 3 sons, okay? If one of them starts dating, say a gal in his teen years who goes to a private school and whose parents are uneducated on the risks of technology, he may get sucked into these things as well. That's just the way this goes, right? Like the risks on social media and on technology are not relegated to only one person. They spread like a virus.
Oh no. I mean, it's a community issue. Right. They're all of our children. And you have kids that go to church together, that don't go to school together, that hang out together, that don't play on teams together. But, right, that connected piece. There's so many things I love about this gift for families. And one of them is recognizing that schools can't and really shouldn't do everything. They're not experts on everything. And so for someone, and in this case, for you to have your experience combined with Officer Gomez, who's a national expert on these things, yes, to come together and say, but we are experts. this is our experience. What can we do to partner with schools and bring that to the table for families? I can't think of a better example or a better model of how we're asking our districts, and for me personally, looking out, who are the natural partners when we're talking about Idaho's kids? And to have this opportunity to make it available for schools, for families, I think is just incredible.
I'm really excited about it, predominantly because if we don't bring parents back in, if we don't include parents back into the conversation, if we don't reinstill parents as the primary protector of their children, like, law enforcement cannot solve this problem. And realizing that they can't solve this problem, there's no way schools are going to solve this problem.
And again, that's not their job. Right. But if we empower parents, I know that word empowering has gotten a negative connotation over the last couple of years.
Has it? Is that a thing?
I use it all the time because this is what we're talking about, empowering parents, giving them knowledge, giving them tools, and saying, here's what the school can do. Here's what you need to know. And then you're offering as this great gift. Now you can do this. This is how we fortify our families with the tech industry, or not industry, but just environment.
With the tech environment, and that's a really important piece, because the program, again, the Fortify Your Kids program, and if anybody out there is listening and they want to get this in their school district, just get a hold of your school board, your principals, whoever. I mean, again, we can route it to everybody through your office.
Yes, and you've got it in schools already.
Yes,
and so you know it's working,
yes.
And and I know you can share what that looks like. But I think that's another piece of this, is that we do have districts who are at the front of this saying, hey, we're seeing gaps, and we're seeing places where we have needs, but we don't have the resources to do that, nor do we have the expertise. And this is where Matt says, to the rescue.
I appreciate that. It is very easy to consume. The fundamental piece of the education is just 4 small videos that last at max, I think, about 25 minutes collectively. You can watch them when you're brushing your teeth. They go very quickly, and they will arm you with the information that you need to make the best decision in your house, right? We are not prescriptive and you have to do these things, but it's more of, let me set the stage for you to understand what the risks are, and then you can manage your house as you feel best, having received this knowledge. But it's, in the absence of something like this, it seems all but impossible that we'd be able to actually educate parents at scale across Idaho, because there are so many wonderful groups going around trying to educate people. But when you have an obligation to get a significant collection of parents in the same place at the same time. For instance, Officer Gomez, he goes all around the country, and sometimes he'll go places and there will only be, 20 or 50 people there.
Yeah. I mean, let's get real. Right. How do we consume information?
On our phones. God bless you. I love that you're acknowledging this. That's what we do.
We do. And so to expect that we are now going to be having those community nights where all the parents get together and the principal does this or that. I mean, I love the image of that, and that's yesteryear. And we do have places that do that. Sure. But for what we're talking about, what's the easiest and best way to connect a parent with the information they need? Right. Through their phone. And so I love that you're saying, look, here's good, good solutions are good solutions. And you're not giving parents rules of, this is how long your child should have a phone. This is the appropriate screen time. Right. We're not talking about anything like that. You're talking about the predators that are out there, the dangers that are there, things that your kids may stumble upon. Here's how you protect your kid from that. Right. We're not saying technology is bad, but there are bad actors in that. And we can help our kids navigate that world.
Right. Just like we're not saying cars are bad.
No.
Cars are great, but they're dangerous. Mm-hmm. And we acknowledge the danger. We train our kids to drive safely. They go too fast and text while they're driving. We ground them. Yeah. We go through that process. But again, the beautiful thing about this, going back to your tech environment, is that it's not just for school tech. This information is information that's relevant for personal consumer items as well. Senator Cook, we've been, as the state PTA legislative rep, I and the president have been working with Senator Cook as well. He introduced the minor safety toggle switch last session that did not get passed. But working with him, hopefully we'll be able to bring legislation to make sure that this type of technology is mandated across the state of Idaho. so that we can ensure that if public schools are handing out this technology, they are also arming parents with the knowledge that will support them in their homes.
And I think that's fair because, again, where we started this full circle is for a parent, they would believe that what their child is bringing home has those protections built into it. And the school would come from a position of saying, well, we don't do that. That's actually not our part. Okay, well then how do we work on this together so that we know that we're aware of what's available to your child outside of the school day when it's not being monitored in the same degree?
Yes. I'm excited about this. I greatly appreciate the work you've put into helping us figure out how we can roll this out in the state, being welcoming of this information.
For sure.
And helping to just make a better tech and education environment for children. It has been keeping me up over the last year and a half. And since you and I connected and started working on it, it's like, yes, she gets it. She gets it. She wants to spearhead it. She realizes we all recognize we came to this position quickly and through essentially an emergency situation, but we're not in that anymore. And even if we were, we should be recognizing issues.
Stop and say, what are the things in the need to get or continue learning? Mm-hmm. What did we skip over quickly? And then how do we blend both of those worlds? And I think anything we can do on the school end that gives the parents the information, the resources, and the tools is a benefit. It's a win for everyone because, frankly, many of the issues that are let me rewind that. All of the issues that our students are dealing with at home come to school. So, I mentioned earlier looking at these as two separate problems, I think is the incorrect position. It's all the same kids. It's the same issue. And it's just, this is what it looks like when you're at school. This is what it looks like when you're at home. And for a parent to know and to be able to oversee that is the most important part of that.
Thank you for coming in today. Thank you for what you're doing to partner
Thank
with
you.
this.
I mean, to get a free resource, do you know how often that happens at a statewide level in education?
Probably not that often. And we are working to improve it all the time. We're also going to be working on having bilingual dubbing on, as well as other resources. But if you're interested, and if anybody's interested, just get a hold of your district or your school, send a note. You can also just go to fortifyyourkids.com. You can just send us a note and we can get it routed through the State Department of Ed. I'd be happy to help with that as well.
And folks can call my office and ask about it as well. They can, in fact, leave a message, say, hey, we saw Debbie on Matt's podcast talking about Fortify Our Kids. We want to know how to get that into our school district, and we'll make sure that we make that connection with you as well. And we've talked about getting it on the Department of Education website so that it's an easy click. We've got a Parents Corner page with this type of information that it's not academic information, so to speak, but it's important information and it helps lead to that academic success and just success of the kid.
Yeah. I really love the state and you're a piece of it and you're making it even better. I appreciate you.
Thank you. And what a great opportunity. And, good things start with these small ideas and someone saying, hey, have an idea, and people who care. And I think, that's one of the things that makes Idaho so
great,
tremendous in what we're able to do, that good people say, I care about my community. And then it just grows from there. And then, the next thing you know, you're on a podcast talking about safety.
God bless it.
Safety.
Thank you for coming in today, Debbie. Thank you for
Matt.
everything you're doing, and we'll get after it.
Thank you. Next time I want to come back in and talk about the digital literacy graduation requirement I'm proposing. So,
I would
can we do
love
part
to do
two?
that. Oh my God, please do.
Okay.
Because again, I to be clear, I love tech. We just need the right tech. I love this idea.
We need it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.